All right, guys, G.I. Joe here again. Welcome back to my bunker. Today's project is building the cover for this. I alluded to this on my last video, and so I needed to get some more rails, which you see here. This is I got these at Home Depot. It's a 1x2, but the actual measurement is 0.75 by 1.5, so 3/4 by 1.5, which is the exact same size as this rail. And so I got 6 of these at 90 inches in length. This cost me, I think, $35 for this. And then I got a 4x8 sheet of birch plywood, and I had them rip it down to 88 inches in length and 44 3/8 in width. So that was about 30 bucks. So I'm going to be able to build my cover to my table for, I think, 65 bucks plus my labor. So not bad at all. Now, the reason I got 6 of these at 90 inches is because the length of my table is 88. So one of these will be one rail coming down. The other one will be another rail coming down the side. This one here, the third one, is 90. I'm going to cut it in half, 45 inches, and it will be both ends, one end and the second end. And then these 3 I will also cut in half at 45 degrees, and that will give me 45 inches rather. And that will give me 3 on this end and 3 on this end. It'll give me a total of 6 45-inch supports, which will go across this way. Okay? So just give you an idea of what my plan is here at the start. And I am going to go now, and I'm going to cut the outside frame and put that, kind of do a little dry fit here. I'm not going to videotape me doing cuts, but I'll maybe come back when I do the dry fit and show you how I cut it. Okay, the first thing I did was I went and I cleaned up both ends here. Since this is straight out of the store, I wanted a nice, clean, fresh cut for both ends, so I did that on each end. And rather than use my tape measure, I want to be exact to what my table is. So if there's any, slight difference between an 88 or, will be exactly flush with the end here. As you can see, I'm going to have to account for this cup because it's not going to sit down. So what I'm going to do to account for that is I'm going to cut a wedge right there, put that on my table saw. No. Anyways, I'm going to cut into here just a little bit. And I'm not going to go all the way through the board. I'll go about a third of the way through, halfway maybe. And so I'm going to cut that, and I'm going to take that out, chisel it out, what have you, so that this will sit flush against this, yet still account for the space that I need to slide this all the way over on top of this cup lip. All right, and I'll do that on each corner, okay? So now I'm going to, this is flush. I'll go down here. I'm gonna make a mark. As you can see, this is why I had them cut it at 90 inches, so that I could clean up the ends and have a little bit of excess in case I made a mistake. If I would have had them cut it at exactly 88, then by the time I clean up the edges and all that, it would have been too short. All right, so I'm gonna do this process and carry on. Okay, guys, I had to improvise just a little bit. I don't have the right tools. I don't have a dado blade for my table saw, and so I had to come up with some way to allow for this overhang. So what I decided to do was to put handles here. That way, when the lid is closed, if I want to open, I can slide my hand under here and lift up the table. And so that allows for the space that I need, and all I had to do was measure in how far I wanted to go on each side, draw a straight line, and then I took my chop saw, and I simply came down, cut several times down to that line, and then I took my jigsaw and cut out the pieces, and then I sanded that to smooth it out a little bit. So I had to improvise a little bit, and I actually kind of like it, to be honest with you. And what I'm going to do is I am also going to do the same process here. I will have another cut out here and then on each end, so that when I go to grab the table, somebody will be on that end, grab the cover. I can put one hand here and one hand here, and that'll help me lift the cover off the board. So again, I'm not a professional wood craftsman, but this is my kind of my problem solving, trying to put my problem solving skills to work. So I think this is going to work. I'm pretty happy, and we'll proceed with the rest. All right, I got the outer frame going. It's all dry fit. It's pretty close. But now I'm going to notch some holes in the end here on each side, and then I can put that together and then start putting the supports. Okay guys, I have the outer frame all glued and nailed together. And I've got my notches here to slide my hand in so I can lift up the cover. I've got those on going over every single cup holder. And the frame is nailed and glued, and this top is a dry fit because I'm not doing that yet because I have to put the ribs in here to support this, because I'd like to use this one to keep the dust off of pieces and the map and all that. But you know, we can use it as a family, you know, if you want to play some type of other board game or what have you. So I don't know if I said this in the last video, but I considered putting some notches here to help lift the cover, but I decided not to do that because all I have to do is use this to get underneath it, and as soon as I pick up, I can put my hand underneath the rest of the rail. So that's just a little bit less cutting, less potential mistake, and so I think I'm going to leave it like that. So now what is next? I'm not going to put the top down yet. I mean, as far as I'm not going to nail and glue it down just yet. I have to do one more thing before I can do that. And that is, if you notice right here, I have a little box, a hole. When I lift the cover off, that's going to be a place to put a cell phone. However, when the cover is on, it's going to be my lock device to help to hold the tabletop in place. And let me show you what I'm talking about. I am going to cut some of these 3/4 by 1/2, and I'm going to nail it into right here, the edge, all the way there flush, and I'll do it there. And I've got another one here. Okay, and I'll do the same thing on that end and that end, because I have two of these on the end as well. And essentially that is going to work as the table lock, so that this keeps the table from sliding this way. See, if I push, and then the one on that side will keep it from sliding in the direction that this camera is looking. Therefore, once the tabletop is set down, it shouldn't wobble. Okay, so that's the next step. I'm going to cut off some of these pieces, and then I'm going to glue them. So I'm going to cut them off here, make it flush with the top of this rail, And I might put 2 pieces here just to give a little bit more width. And I will glue and nail those all the way, in each corner. And then once I do that, then I can put on my actual tabletop and then flip it upside down and put in the ribs. Okay, so I just finished this process. So you can see I nailed one in every corner. There's one there, got one down here. It goes down here into this card slot or phone slot. Now, when I cut these pieces, I had to make sure to cut them short enough because I did not want them touching the bottom, because I didn't want this peg pushing up on the bottom to where this would not sit flush, okay? So I cut them slightly short. So when I marked it here, I cut it below the line. And you know, these don't all have to be the same length on the bottom. That didn't really matter as long as they didn't touch the bottom. And then I nailed in here. And then when I went to this one, I pushed as far as possible. I pushed this way to make sure it was nice and snug against that post. And then I put this post tightly up against this edge, and then I nailed here. So now, if you look, I'm shaking, and there's very little play. I wanted to make sure that I could at least get it down in there, see? And that's that. Now, there is a little bit of play. But I think this is going to get fixed once I add the supports. And I pull the supports out and do that. All right, so now the next step is to lay my top on this and nail and glue it down, and then I'll flip it over and put the ribs in. And the ribs are going to be made out of the same 3/4 by 1/2. However, what I'm going to do, if you look over here, I am going to get on the table saw and I'm going to cut all of these ribs that go across. I'm going to cut maybe, I don't know, 1/4 inch off or something like that, just so that they don't sit down and touch this table, just in case my table is not totally square. So it'll be flush with this, but then I'm going to cut off a little bit at the bottom on all the ribs, and that'll be my support for my tabletop. All right, so let's go on to the next step. All right, we've got my cover tabletop flipped upside down. I'm going to put now the ribs going across here. I'm going to do 6 of them, about 12 inches apart. The distance between here, each edge is 43 inches. So I cut me 6 ribs, all at 43 inches. And what's going to happen is, when I put it in here, I want it to set flush against the tabletop, but I don't want it to be flush right here. So I'm going to rip about 1/4 inch. And the reason I'm doing that is just in case for some reason my table is not level, this is not going to make it rock back and forth to push up to where the cover won't sit down flush, because I know the outside frame is working exactly how I want it. So again, I'm going to rip a quarter inch so that these ribs do not touch my tabletop. Basically, you're looking at everything upside down, right? But it will be flush against the cover, but it will not touch my actual map or table. Okay, so I've got the support struts assembled, glued, and nailed, at least from the ends, as you can see. And I simply just used a jig here. Took a piece of MDF, cut it to 12 inches, and I kind of put it in there, stapled, and did on down there, did the same thing. Then I did up there, then went down there, just kind of did that all the way across. All right, now, my last thing to do is to nail the top here into the support beam. So there's no space See, there's a little bit of space there, so I've got to push that together. Here, see here. I got to push that together like that and nail it in. So, and then this thing will be ready to assemble onto my table. As you can see, the support struts are not quite flush with the bottom of the cover, and that's because I don't want it touching my my table, so it doesn't wobble. All right, so let's finish this out and go put it on the table. All right, guys, I've got everything assembled, glued, and nailed, and you get an idea of what my Axis and Allies game table with the cover looks like. This is assembled, nailed, and glued. Of course, I still have yet to sand it, prime it, paint it, stain it, etc. Of course, I have to fill these nail holes in a little bit too, so and erase these pencil lines. But overall, I'm very pleased. You know, I'm not a professional woodworker, but and I did make some mistakes on this. Like one of my mistakes I made right here, I put one of the ribs here. When I went to set the table down, it wouldn't set down all the way because underneath here is my dice tray, so that rib kept hitting the dice. So I had to rip out the rib, move it to the left here, and reattach it. So, you know, I made a few mistakes. It's not exactly perfectly square, but you know, I'm overall pretty happy. This was just kind of thought up on my own, some ideas, and the great thing is it serves as a table, obviously, or a cover rather, for my map, so that it doesn't get dusty. My map and pieces don't get dusty when they're down here in the basement. And also serves as a just a game table. So whenever we get this bunker finished out, it'd be cool to have just a game table. You know, play other types of board games and some maybe family time, or who knows, maybe throw the War Room on top of here, the new game by Larry Harris, or you know, other Axis and Allies games. So hope you enjoyed this. And next step for all this is to build. Well, is to start sanding, priming, painting, and then of course I'm going to build a base eventually, but I think I'm done with building for a while. So on to other things. Hope you guys enjoy, and first time watching, if you'd maybe hit like or hit subscribe, definitely encourages me to make more videos. All right, thanks guys, appreciate you watching.